Hello, it's Nikki, and welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad so many of you are loving the interviews, and thank you so much for sharing, rating, and reviewing. I so appreciate it. Anyway, I wanted to continue the conversation of success. So often we hear the extremes, don't we, of rags to riches, homeless to billionaire, sleeping on a random sofa to a blinged up palace. But what about the in-between bits? I know personally I have had many. How do you get from A to Z? But also, how do you get from A to B or F to M? In these mini episodes, I want to provide questions to ponder, ideas that might spark a brainstorm, or raise topics that might be a little bit uncomfortable in the moment, but they will support you to go to the next level of your business. As always, please come over to social media at Nicky Raby, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and breakthroughs. In today's episode, I want you to bring out your rebellious streak. Hair mascara is completely optional. Oh man, a hair mascara, back in the day, hey? But I want you to ignore the stereotypes in your business and concentrate on elevating you. So this week I did a post on my Instagram at Nicky Raby all about why I am boycotting The Apprentice this year. I've always been a fan of the show. I like the people watching quality to it and finding out how people tick, from a psychological point of view. But I watched the first episode and all I saw was women and, men it was just a farmyard of madness. Nobody was listening to each other. Everybody was kind of shoving each other out the way and being scrappy and underhand, not taking responsibility, not showing true leadership, and also not leading from their hearts, not feeling like they could not only take up the space that they take up, but to make room for somebody else. Basically, it went against everything I believe in, that actually collaboration is far more important than competition for me. And for them, it's all about the competition. Now, I understand that it's a heavily edited entertainment TV show, and yes, there is a prize at the end of it. However, one thing that I've learned from being an actor is it's about how you consistently show up, because that one role could suddenly change at the last minute and you want to show that you're available for all the things. So even if you lose that client, or you think that you're going to be working in a certain place, or like with acting, you think you're going to get the part and it all went really well, everything can change at the last minute. So I really work on the sense of just being good every time. Of course, we all have our bad days, that goes without saying, but setting that standard for myself that I'm basically not going to be a DICK, if you've got children listening. So let's talk about stereotypes that I've experienced. And I'm going to talk from my own personal experience here, just to kind of give a bit of context as well. So I definitely experienced in the early years being a ginger-haired person and what connotations and associations went along with that. And you know what? It was pretty tough because it wasn't my fault that I had red hair, and my parents, they've both got dark hair but blue eyes and olive skin, and I was sort of a bit like, well, why have I got this? And then, of course, my peers would obviously take the mick out of me, and they stereotyped me into that position of being less than or not good enough, or they just defined me by the fact that I was a ginger and not really worthy. And it didn't matter what other things that I did, whether I was a nice person or if I was clever or if I was pretty or any of those sort of things, that being a ginger was still the worst thing that you could have. And maybe you've had your own experience of prejudice. Maybe you have not been necessarily what has been shown in terms of your classroom. And if that's you, and if you felt that and you still carry those wounds going forward, I just want to say that I hear you, and I'm sorry that that's been the way. And certainly with my son, the way that I'm approaching how we move into preparing him for school and being a nice person, I am so aware of this, because often these terms or these forms of bullying, they start at home. These children have heard something from somewhere, and I am so conscious about the way I talk about things. Okay, moving on. I also was Northern and went to a comprehensive school. In my school, it was not cool to be clever, to be outspoken, to have the right answer, to pitch in, to be helpful, to be kind, like all those standard good human behaviors. And of course, my kindness or like wanting to make friends slipped through the net. But the general consensus was to hold back, to play small, to sit down and shut up, to be disruptive, because actually that would take the focus rather than growing and learning and preparing yourself. And I'm sure if people from school were listening to this right now, they'll be like, yeah, she's still a geek. But who cares, man? Like, I'm doing this and they're doing that, and we're not going to come in contact in our lives together. So I just wanted to flag that up as well, that even though those school years, which perhaps should have been the best of your life, mine weren't, and thank goodness, because I'm so much happier in my life now than then, that they don't have to define you. There are ways that you can move beyond those limiting beliefs or perhaps those boxes that you were put in, and you can actually use those things as part of your story and your strength to accelerate you forward. Okay, being a dancer. So I absolutely love dancing. I started when I was 4 and I went on to drama school, and you kind of had to be a bit of a triple threat there as well. That we did a lot of dancing and a lot of movement and all of that stuff. So I've danced for a lot of years, and of course, like, don't get me started on a couple of glasses of wine and the rest and a dance floor. I am there all night. But I was really short for my age, and I was quite curvy. I certainly didn't have the lithe, long limbs that were brilliant for ballet. And even as a very small child, standing alongside a bar, all being in line and seeing the mirror right there reflecting back our images, I knew that I was suddenly starting to go down a little bit of a rabbit warren of looking at my body in quite a negative way, that it wasn't good enough, that my turnout wasn't doing what it should be, that my legs weren't up to my armpits. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was a hard worker. In fact, at the dancing school, I won the hardest worker 2 years in a row, because I think my lovely dance teacher could see that I was like, right, I'm 5'2", I'm a bit curvy, but it's fine, I'm gonna give it my best shot. But what actually happened in that was, because I did have natural ability, but not necessarily the shape that we're used to seeing in terms of dancers, I really gave it everything that I could and used it to my advantage, and probably was a bit cheeky and would do some extra things that maybe weren't allowed. So at 16, I went to a different college, and that was away from my school. It was a separate sixth form college, and I had a bit of a reinvention. I got a bit sassy that summer. I don't know why, but I suddenly had that dawning of making my mind up that I didn't just have to be the person that I'd been previously. And I figured out that all of those things that had been said to me throughout secondary school didn't have to dictate where I was going. Now, I probably did take it to extreme a little bit and really rebelled and kind of fell off the wagon a little bit in terms of my studies. I certainly didn't get the grades that I thought I would. I spent a lot of time in the pub, probably with some unruly boys and some lovely girls, and I just had a really great time. But what happened was, at that point, that my popularity really soared, and I was invited to all the parties and all the things. But my studies and my academics and just generally being a decent person, I mean, I'm sure my parents were thinking, who is this child? What has happened to her? It was a really difficult time trying to balance that. And looking back on that time, I let myself believe that I only could make a choice to be popular with boys, having a nice time, or to be a geek. And I'm really interested in these conversations these days, that actually you can be lots of things. You don't have to be either or. You can be and that's kind of what I want for you. So in 2000, I then moved to London. I went to drama school, and looking back, I was just so revved up. I couldn't wait to live in London. I couldn't wait to move out of home. I'd been dreaming of this for ages. But again, I didn't really fit the mold. I had a northern accent, which I've held on to, and I didn't go to public school. A lot of people had. And although we'd been comfortable growing up, I didn't have that kind of trust fund, or I wouldn't be going skiing every half term. I was very much in the grind of being there to work and train and do all those sort of things. Also, I didn't know any actors who made a living from being an actor. And also, we were sold a bit of a struggling artist mentality. And I know it's really good to be realistic, but I think sometimes we were sold a bit too much the other way. As in, you're going to be poor for the rest of your life, but at least you're doing something that you love. You just show up, you be grateful, you be quiet, and you just get on with it. Whereas actually, I found throughout my career that when I'm financially stable, I do better work. I'm more creative. I'm more open to the ideas. I'm less stressed. I'm able to give much more to the job. So that was a stereotype that I really wanted to combat and reinvent myself. And it's taken me a long time, because I think that I did for many years, played small, didn't necessarily think much further than the next few months ahead, and sort of was spontaneous and a bit in a waiting capacity. So I was just waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for permission. And I've got to the sense now where I'm very much driving my own career. So maybe you've had some stereotypes like that, where you've just felt like a square peg in a round hole the whole time. Maybe you did a corporate job where people said you had to be a certain way, and everything in your being was really rebelling against that, and you wanted to shout in a rude, spontaneous way in the middle of a board meeting, "No, don't make me do that." Okay, so then skip to 2012. I trained as a life coach. So I got there on the first day. It was a 2-day free workshop that I went along to, and I was the youngest person there by about 20 years. A lot of people had recently divorced and found themselves, and that is no judgment on divorce. There is divorce in my family, I know it well. But there was that sense of, I'm going to fix you. There was a lot of those kind of voices, all of those like, I'm enlightened and now I'm going to share it with you. And that just didn't sit well with me at all. I never want to feel like I'm being patronized and being told like, don't worry, I know all the things and now I'm going to teach them to you. So I was surrounded by those kind of people. But then when I looked online, the people that I was watching were American. They were very much ahead of the curve. It's still only just getting going in the UK. And everybody was bouncy, big-haired, arms folded, badass women, driving Lamborghinis, wearing Rolexes. You know, that kind of luxe lifestyle that people talk about. And as I was sitting night after night at my computer training, I was not feeling any of those things. In fact, I was just thinking, oh my goodness, like I'm never going to get there. But I ignored my instinct and I tried to do that. So the first couple of websites that I had, they were all about finding the empowered you. And they were all really shouty, all quite knowing and closed. And that is really not me. And what I was finding was that I was forcing a style upon myself, and it really just didn't sit right. And therefore it didn't attract the right clients. It didn't attract consistent clients. And I spent a lot of the first couple of years figuring it out, and then realizing that it wasn't for me, undoing it all, starting again, doing something else, taking a new direction. It was exhausting. So it does feel a little bit weird sharing all of that. And by no means am I bitter and twisted and sort of resentful or anything like that. But I am a human being with feelings, and I've had to work through all of this stuff. And I'm not saying I'm special or different. I'm sure you will have had your own versions of stereotypes that have popped up, the boxes that you've been put in, the ways in which other people have labelled you that haven't necessarily sat well with you. So I want you just to do a little bit of a brainstorm around maybe what stereotypes are holding you back right now. And the way that you get connected with this is thinking about the progress that you want to make, but those little voices in your head that pop up to say hello every single time you try to make progress. And I really want you to go into detail of what that means to you. Keep asking yourself why. So if you have a sentence of, well, this happens and this is just the way it is, or, well, that's just how it's always been, keep asking yourself why. I'm sure you will get to the root of maybe it was that person that said something to you, or perhaps you overheard a conversation and you cemented a new belief about how these things happen. So really consider what those stereotypes are and how maybe they're holding you back. One thing that I've really learned is when I am me and I do things in the way that feels really good, when I get in the flow, great things happen. So I'm not saying that you need to be me by any means. And I'm not saying that you need to emulate my version of things. What I need you to be is you, and to own that and to do some work around that and really think about what this next level is for you. Where are you going in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months? What do you want to gain? What do you want to achieve? And looking at the actions and the mindset to have in place in order to take that action. Because you know what? The more that you can align with that, the more that you can start to wear that as your new normal, everything else will start to fall into place. Because once you know your values, what's important to you, you will be able to have that benchmark of what is acceptable and what is not, what is in your life now and what is not, where your boundaries are and where they're not, where they're a bit more fluid. So enjoy. I hope you found that useful, and if you need to digest this over the next couple of days, what I don't want it to be is too triggering for you. Just be really kind and gentle to yourself and do this exercise super slowly. And as always, if you've got any comments or feedback, please let me know over on Instagram at Nicky Raby, or you can email me hello@nickyraby.com. Also, if you haven't already done so, please check out the online events that I've got coming up. There's loads for you to choose from. I'm doing 4 in November that I'm really excited to share. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my online magazine, which helps you just kickstart your week, you can do so, nickyraby.com/magazine. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for listening as always. If you do want to rate and review and subscribe over on iTunes, or even share it with a friend, I would love it. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to find out more about me and how we can work together, please go to nickyraby.com or connect with me across social media at Nicky Raby. I'll see you soon. Bye.